All right, Bismillah Rahman Rahim. Welcome to another session of Evolve. My name is Daniyal Siddiqui, and we are back with the Evolve session 2. And coming straight to the topic, today we picked up a very, very interesting topic that was e-learning and skills education, the future perspective. That was the topic. And we're lucky today, ladies and gentlemen, to have two of the renowned people from my favorite place, other than Pakistan, on the planet, and that is Northern Ireland. We're very lucky to have two gentlemen with us today. I'll come straight to the topic. We have with us Mr. Zia Nazar, and we also have Mr. Richard Morrison with us today as well. Zia is from the International Department of Southeastern and Regional College, Northern Ireland. And then we have the ever-refreshing, the ever-smiling Richard Morrison. He's the Deputy Head of School of Engineering at Southeastern and Regional College. As the topic suggests, guys, we're talking about e-learning and skills education, the future perspective. So we have our both friends from Northern Ireland, and we would like to warmly welcome them. Hello, Richard. Hello, Zia.
Hi, Daniel.
Hi, Daniel.
I'm good. I'm good. I hope both of you are good as well. Before anything, I would like to ask, how is the COVID period coming along? I'll start with Richard. Richard, how is the lockdown coming along for you?
Well, probably like a lot of countries, we are slowly coming out of lockdown, and restrictions are being lifted nearly now on a weekly basis. So we're not allowed to gather in large crowds, but we can get together with, I think, up to 10 people.
Up to 10 people, but outside, Richard.
But outside, exactly. So yeah,
yes,
outside. So in Northern Ireland, typical weather, that would be a bit of a disaster, because even in the summer, it can rain quite a bit. But this year, it has been very dry and quite warm. Now, when I say warm, nothing like Pakistan at the moment, because Daniel, you're in an air-conditioned room and you're still sweating.
Yep, that's how it happens. It is. I just turned on the air conditioner, so that's why maybe perhaps it's going to take a bit of time. And Zia, how is it for you? How is it coming along? 3 months almost now for the lockdown period, is it?
Yes. It's nearly 3 months now. I think that lockdown started on the 23rd of March. So as Richard said, it's slowly going to allowing small gatherings outside at the minute, 10 people maximum, but we are still not allowed to meet with our family or friends indoor. Regarding the college, the buildings are closed at the minute. Students are not back yet. Kids are off school. It's all online at the minute. So
very interesting. Fine, yeah. All right. So before we go along on the start, ladies and gentlemen, Evolve and Southeastern Regional College, SERC, have been associated with each other, and we have been working with Southeastern Regional College, representing them in few areas in Pakistan. But SERC is, in fact, a combination of colleges. It was before, and it was combined. It's a skill-based institution which has been working in Northern Ireland. And as we discussed before, skills is something we impart a lot in Evolve training sessions also. So that's why we decided to have best of the best two people with us who are working in this field of skills and have been talking about it. Richard Morrison does not need any introduction. He brings his engineering background. He has been working in Africa, in Northern Ireland. He's based right now. He has visited Pakistan also. So he has seen the Pakistani side also. And we are very grateful to have him today. Before we start off, I would like to first of all, Richard, ask you for a brief introduction, if possible, for SERC also, so that everybody can come to know about it, please. Thank you.
Okay. So it's interesting when you look at the history of training and education in Northern Ireland, particularly further education, and the establishment of the FB colleges really goes back to the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. And what's interesting about this is that that threw up a real need for skill training. Suddenly you're moving into high industrial activity. You don't have the skills. how are you going to train the people? And so the FE colleges really came out of an industrial revolution that required skills training. And to a larger extent, that hasn't really changed. Now, you mentioned incorporation. In 2007, the 16 further education colleges became 6 regional colleges. And Southeastern Regional College is one of those 6 regional colleges. So we have campuses in and around a radius of maybe 35, 40 miles. At the minute, we have about 30,000 full-time and part-time students and about 150, 160 lecturing staff. What's interesting is that when you look at the history of the colleges, we are still the mainstay of economic development, training and education, further education, higher education in Northern Ireland. And among the 6 colleges, we are one of the top of those 6 colleges, providing skills training and education. So, yeah, we're very proud of our achievements in terms of working with industry. We work with hundreds of companies here in Northern Ireland. We have a very high profile internationally. You mentioned that I have been to Pakistan on a number of occasions, working with a number of colleges there. So we're constantly looking to expand and develop the skills that as a college we have developed over the years.
All right, Richard, brief, I would like, because I will ask you some related questions, but before I go onwards to you, I would like to request Zia for international department, brief introduction. Southeastern Regional College, Belfast, how does it work? How does the international department represent? So, Candy, if you can brief some thoughts on it.
But no problem, Daniyal. Thank you very much. I would like to add something what Richard just said, about Southeastern Regional College. Now, Southeastern Regional College is basically, it's a further and higher education college. So it's important to understand the definition of further and higher education in terms of education in UK point of view. So any course which is any program or course which is up to level 3, equivalent to A levels. In Pakistan, it's intermediate or FSC or ICOM or FA. So that's called further education. So any program which is up to level 3, including level 1, 2, and level 3, known as further education. So any program which is level 4 and above are high national diplomas, high national certificates, foundation degrees, undergrad degrees are known as H, which is higher education. So now,
also, Zia, if I could just say, it would be important to recognize that the level 4 and level 5 is broadly equivalent to the first and second year of university study.
Exactly. Yeah, that's good. Thank you. Thanks, Richard. Now, so SERC has a range of level 3, level 4, level 5, up to level 6 programs. When I said range, I think we cover almost each and every discipline of education, if I'm not wrong, Richard. Engineering, computing, business studies, travel and tourism, performing art, drama, music, a range of other, and vocational areas.
Yes.
No, in terms of internationalization, Daniyal, definition of international programs is that any program which is level 3 full-time is eligible for international studies. So SERC has a license from the Home Office to recruit international students. So all our full-time programs are eligible for international students. Any program full-time level 3 and above is eligible for international students. So that's one aspect of the international department. And other than that, we have, I think, range of international programs which we are covering at the minute. We are working closely with British Council, local British Council, international partners. And so we have long relationship partners with Pakistani institutions and in Japan, in Singapore, Korea,
India.
many in Middle East, India. Yes, Richard was in India recently.
In fact, I just got back in time, Daniel.
Oh, was it? So you were in India in the lockdown
Just
period?
before the lockdown.
Well,
Just before the
pretty.
lockdown.
It was touch and go.
Right, and you came very close to India as well. Right, so that's wonderful. So, while I talk about further and skills education, so Southeastern Regional College SERC has a very renowned name. And when I was there, actually, there also I saw many international students. So today we'll be discussing more about that. Now, before I go onwards and start, Richard, because we will make it a interactive session, we can ask questions related to it. So you have been working across the world. You have been into Zimbabwe, if I'm not wrong.
That's correct.
Yep.
Yes.
You have been an engineer. You have been working with on skills on small programs. You play guitar very well. We have been told you do lots of things. So let's come up with a bit of start. I would like to know a bit of your background also. Where do you come from? Because evolved people would relate that. How much time have you spent in which areas?
Yeah. Okay. So when I left school, I embarked upon an engineering degree. And it's interesting because the word engineer essentially means to be creative. And you'll find that many engineers will also have a strong musical background or involvement. So I suppose it was no surprise that given my music background and I'm still playing music, that engineering was a very kind of natural choice for me. I worked for 13 years in industry. When I finished my undergraduate degree, part of that was designing missile systems and making guitars. I worked for a world-renowned guitar company as manufacturing director. A company called Loudon Guitars, played by some of the top musicians in the world. They're here in Northern Ireland, bizarrely, because when you look at it on paper, it just shouldn't work. We have to buy in all the raw materials, and we had to export the finished product. And from an economic point of view, it doesn't really work on paper. But because they're such good guitars, and people want them, then it seemed to just hit a niche in the market. So following from an engineering industrial background, I moved into education. I remember sitting at an interview for the job in Zimbabwe in London on one occasion, and I was asked the question, so Mr. Morrison, why do you want to teach? And I said, well, it was a little bit like finding an old coat that I used to love wearing, putting it back on again and thinking, you know what, this coat feels really good. And it was the right move. It was the right thing for me. I think in life, you have to find the thing that you really care about and that you love doing and go and do it. And at that time, that's exactly what I did. So I started off in further education here in Northern Ireland. And after a couple of years, I moved to Zimbabwe with my wife and 4 children for 5 years. That was a life-changing experience. You don't move halfway around the world with your family and it not have an impact. Often it's not as positive as you might like it to be. I was very fortunate in that we had a fantastic time, so many opportunities. Probably a little bit like Pakistan in the sense that if you're the type of person, and Daniel, you are this type of person who is get up and go, you don't let anything put you off. You don't let someone tell you, oh, no, you can't do that if that's something that you want to do. And so when opportunities present themselves, you take them. So as well as teaching, I started a web design company did some consultancy, bizarrely on IT, which really isn't my background. But as I've just said, opportunities present themselves, and you grab those opportunities with both hands.
That's
So,
wonderful as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
You know, so I came back. I came back from Zimbabwe and came back into teaching, and I'm now deputy head of school for engineering and computing, and responsible for all the higher level engineering courses, the level 4 and level 5 engineering courses, foundation degree and Pearson qualifications, which people in Pakistan may well be familiar with.
Pearson qualification.
Right. Right. So wonderful. So it's been a long journey, and you've been involved with working with Right Now Skills program. Zia,
Yes.
Coming towards you, you have an experience of working in international skills market. You have been involved in a very highly skilled. You are a great ambassador from Pakistan also. Very importantly, Zia was born and raised in Pakistan and afterwards moved to UK, and he has been a great ambassador overall for Pakistan. Zia, I had a question and I thought I'll ask you and have it on the
Please.
screen. It's a very important concept called blended learning. I would like you to throw some light upon it and advise the audience, guide the audience. What is blended learning for you?
Yeah, no problem, Daniel. Thank you. Well, I think I will give you some information for the international point of view from perspective, and Richard will add. I'll request Richard to add for in it, for SERC perspective. Now, first of all, the blended learning, the definition is most of the institutions at the minute, they are aimed to resume face-to-face study in small groups with lectures delivered online in current situation. So so this is called blended learning, that face-to-face study in a small group plus some lecture delivered online. So that's the main definition of blended learning. So the blended learning, it is usually not available for international students. It's not available for tier 4 students because tier 4 students are only allowed to study a full-time course. The definition of full-time course in education, it's a 15 hours per week. They must attend face-to-face classes in the campus, at the campus, from Monday to Friday. So that's in the normal circumstances. But in present circumstances, Home Office recently issued a new guideline on the 16th of June. And according to those guidelines, that tier 4 students are now taking place on the premises. It's under blended learning. They're allowed to study in blended learning. Means that they can attend a college less than 15 hours. Plus, they will also attend the distance through the distance learning. So that's for the tier 4 point of view.
Okay, that's wonderful as well. And Richard, any your input upon the blended learning concept?
Well, yes. In the college, we have been involved with blended learning for a number of years. It's taken on a slightly different focus, as Zia has just indicated, as a result of COVID and the lockdown. But it's not something that's particularly new, and especially within engineering, because, as you well know, Daniel, your employer or your employees are very precious, and the time that they have within their companies. So, I mean, we've been providing courses in SERC that have been a combination of direct teaching and online teaching for maybe the last 10 years. Now, I think that's taken on a different emphasis now, where, as Zia has just indicated, it looks like come September, we're going to be teaching maybe half the class in a face-to-face situation, and then the other half will be at home and will engage via online learning. And so it's important that the resources reflect the ability of students to both be in college and be at home. And what we're seeing is that even awarding bodies like Pearson, for example, are developing online or blended content for their programs so that lecturers can make use of resources that have been developed specially for their programs. Of course, there's a wealth of content available through the internet, and it's more a question of finding what's relevant and what's interesting. The danger with any blended learning program where you've got a lot of internet or computer interaction is that after a short while you get bored. Now, I don't think anybody will be bored listening to us today. I hope.
Well, hopefully
but
not.
That's the danger, that students disengage, and it's really important that they are engaged and that they're actually learning. Just because you have someone their video or their face in front of you on a computer screen doesn't necessarily mean that they're learning. So I think part of the challenge of the blended learning approach is to ensure that learning is actually taking place.
That's the right approach as well. So Zia and Richard, I think Richard might answer this question, or you can. How, before this COVID lockdown situation, how was blended learning implemented in Southeastern Regional College SERC? Any input upon that? How has this been done, Richard?
Before the lockdown, Daniyal?
Yeah.
Before lockdown. Okay. So again, it will vary across the curriculum. I can speak specifically about engineering, and we have been using a virtual learning environment probably for the last 8 or 9 years called Moodle, which you may or may not be familiar with. There are others, but Moodle is an open source learning environment. So it's been developed all the time. And so for most of our courses and programs, the course content is available using the VLE. Now, I think it would be fair to say that in the beginning, it would have been mostly made up of Word documents and PowerPoints and things like that. But that has evolved now, and there's much more interaction with the content. So we're using a myriad of different ways of developing and have presented the learning. So at the heart of our blended learning within the college has been our VLE, our virtual learning environment. Now, what that means is that no longer is it necessary to print out information, course content, because you don't need to. I don't think I've printed anything for 5 or 6 years. Zia, sorry, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to ask, what about the practical part of your engineering courses, the practical?
Yes.
The practical.
How do we use that?
Yes. How soon?
Okay. I mean, that's a good question.
Use that,
Yeah.
I'm just curious. So.
It's a good question. So we have a virtual server that hosts our simulation software. And students can access that when it comes to the design and building and simulation of circuits. Practically, of course, if you're going to physically make something, then that's an activity that needs to take place within the college. What's going to be interesting come the next academic year, starting in September, is how we manage the practical content, i.e. the activities that cannot be done at home, can only be done in the college. How we're going to manage to ensure that all the students get enough time to engage within those practical activities.
But a very important question, Richard, is how is assessment done during this blended learning concept?
Yeah.
Again, that will vary from one program to another. So, for example, a program that's got quite a lot of practical activity, that will still need to be assessed in the college. The new Pearson program, it's referred to as the RQF qualification framework, has been streamlined so that each learning outcome has got the same number of assessment opportunities associated with it. Mm-hmm. And so if it's something that's practical, then that needs to be done in the college. If it's something where the student is maybe writing up a report or is carrying out some sort of a simulation, then they can do that work. They're able to upload their assessed work as long as it's completed electronically, and they can do that using Word, or they can import images using their phone camera. As long as they can present the work electronically, they can then upload it onto Moodle, and then it can be downloaded from Moodle to the lecturer's computer, and he can then assess that work.
Right, interesting. Zia, I will keep on taking some questions from the audience also. We have a question, and I think you are the right person to answer it. We have a question from Aman, and it says, how can a student from Pakistan join SERC?
Yes, as I said, any program which is level 3 and above, full-time program, students can apply for that. So if they have a minimum of level 3 qualification from Pakistan, which is equivalent to A levels here, they can apply for any full-time program. It has full-time program. And second, the main requirement is their English language score, IELTS. So the minimum IELTS score required is 6.0 band, 6.0 in overall, 6 IELTS band overall in 4 components, and not less than 5.5 in any of the 4 components: listening, writing, reading, and speaking. So once they apply for the program, we will issue them a CAS. A CAS is Certificate of Acceptance for Studies, which is a visa letter in other language, but professionally it's known as CAS. So they apply for their visa from Pakistan and they can join us. So it's very simple. We accept international students on any of the full-time programs.
All right. That's the right approach for it. So now, further going onwards, there is another question which I think.
Just to add something in my previous in the previous question, they can apply online. So if they go on SERC website, which is www.serc.ac.uk, and they will see the link on the first page, apply online. So they can simply apply online. It's a very simple application method to apply online.
Okay, right. So we will give all the links for that also. Richard, there's a question and I think nobody best other than you can answer it. The question is, since skills program need a lot of practical work, which is very difficult through online learning, what are your thoughts upon it? Now, I believe this question has been asked in context of COVID-19. So since skills require a lot of practical work and knowledge, so what are your thoughts and input upon it?
Well, I think it's interesting when you look at how we have managed the last 3 months, given that we really had a week to prepare, because, what I'd said earlier on was really more in the context of pre-COVID. So now we are using Microsoft Teams. And just to mention that there was a week where we prepared our Microsoft Teams site, learned how to use it, and we're using Microsoft Teams as our way of delivering the content, the online content. So we now talk about online and on campus. Now, of course, something that's practical, as I mentioned before, you need to actually be in college. So what we're hoping to do come September is that, and let's just say, for example, we've got a class of 16 students, then half the class will be in college during 1 week. The other half will be online, and then the following week they will swap over. So while the students are in class, they can participate in practical activities, and then while they're at home, they can participate in the class along with the rest of the students. So it's a question, I think, of managing the time, making sure that when a practical activity is being carried out, that the students who are in the college have the opportunity to do that, and also then the following week when the other half of the class would participate. The key, of course, to this is social distancing, because that determines how many students can be in the classroom and in the college. So it's not just about those that are in the classroom, but it's about the overall number of students that are in the college, that has to be at the right number in order to achieve the appropriate social distancing. And there is talk of that being reduced from 2 meters to 1 meter. And if that happens, then that will ease things considerably. Daniel.
Yeah,
at the minute, Richard,
at the minute, I think it's 2 meters.
Yes, it is.
It's
That's
2 meters.
correct.
Yeah. And it's very challenging to accommodate the numbers. It's very challenging at the minute to accommodate the numbers what we have. So we will have to reduce. If it stays like 2 meters, then I think that we have to reduce our numbers to 40 to 50%, Richard, if I'm not wrong.
Yes,
right.
That's
I have a very now coming towards a very, very interesting. Or the main focus of our discussion today also is, I wanted to know what do you guys think, especially Richard. What's your thoughts? How the world would be, how the future would be after COVID-19, unless or until there's a remarkable discovery of any vaccine or anything which comes up. I think we all might have to understand and live with it. So, what are your thoughts? What are your idea upon the fact of the world after COVID-19 and how the future perspective of e-learning and skills education will be?
So I think there's no doubt that this idea of working from home is something that will develop much more. And I think we're going to see some very innovative ways of being able to do that. So, for example, we talked about the practical work only taking place in college. It may well be that we can come up with ways of simulating instruments and instrumentation, and of being able to make components and different things available to students so that they can perform some practical activities that normally would take place in college at home. But I think we're going to see a huge increase in the development of e-learning packages, of different ways of simulating engineering activities, etc., so that people are able to work not just from home, but work more effectively from home. Having said that, of course, you're not going to be able to make the sort of things that we now need in society at home. So the likes of Intel, the likes of our motor car manufacturers, all the bigger industrial type companies, that sort of work will still continue. It'll have to, but I think people are generally reassessing the things that they need. And it may well be that we'll see society itself evolving and changing, and maybe becoming more focused on the things that really matter, which could be interesting as well.
All right. A very important aspect is, let me give you a few insights about Pakistan. Is in Pakistan, when this issue came up for the assessment, there was a lot of discussions, and in the end, the government took a decision for certain levels based upon the previous assessment records. The students were promoted to the next classes or the next level. How about the assessment during this period, Richard? What are your thoughts upon the assessment during this concept?
Yeah. Again, it's interesting because the awarding bodies have had to come up with a way of us being able to award grades where perhaps all the work hadn't been completed. And we've seen that with the GCSEs and the A levels. And I think Pearson took a fairly pragmatic approach to this, where if a student had completed 50% of a module or a unit, we were able to then calculate a grade based on that. Now, going forward, it may well be that we have to modify some of what is being assessed so that it falls into a category where under the online learning or the blended learning, that's more appropriate. So modules that maybe had a very high practical content, that we're going to look more at simulation rather than actual hands-on, although I think there still will be an opportunity for that, but it's getting the blend right, it's getting the mix right. And if we can do that, then we can assess.
Right. Zia, since you have always been involved in international students and handling the international students, how do you see the overall UK or Northern Ireland international intake? Do you think that's going to be affected? How the future is going to be for international students overall?
Yeah, at the minute, according to my information, yes, it will be greatly affected, Daniel. It's a very good question because I think I mentioned that in the beginning that government Home Office has recently published the new guidelines that international students are eligible to study in blended learning. So before this COVID-19 situation, they were not allowed to join any distance learning class, and they were not allowed to apply for Tier 4 visa. But in current situation, in current situation, they are, because recently government has allowed them to apply for Tier 4 visa. Now they will apply for the visa. They will, for example, if they get the visa, they will stay in their home country, or they will travel to UK. But they can study through the distance learning. Now the biggest problem is that they recently issued the guidelines on the 16th of June. So it's very late this year. I think it will be greatly affected. What I heard from different sources, that most of the universities, they extended their deadline for international students to October. So they will have clear 3-4 months to recruit international students. I don't see much recruitment will happen this year, Daniel, to be very honest, because of travel restrictions. That's one of the main issue at the minute with different countries. And interestingly, I heard from the sources that some of the universities are thinking to start a chartered flight between China and UK. Richard, would you believe that? A chartered flight for the universities.
When it comes to money, people will do nearly anything.
Yeah.
but why I mentioned this, but not a lot of universities and colleges they will be able to do this.
Yeah, but the point again that remains is how many universities would be able to do that?
Well, very few, and mainly with China only, I think, where we get the maximum number.
You mean the country that's the source of the COVID outbreak?
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
So I think for the international point of view, this year the recruitment the numbers will be reduced to 20 to 30%.
Right. Interesting. So hopefully we can say the situation will get better. Richard, engineering background, you come from, and you have been involved into you're a deputy head. So of course you're looking very closely at the international, so the technical skills based projects going on. So just want a quick question for all the engineers who are watching, how much it is important for skill-based such programs, technical programs for the industry, the students who are not able to make it to the engineering institutions or universities should be able to get this done. So, what are your thoughts upon this?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I was in a meeting yesterday in the college where we were talking about project-based learning and how we will continue to develop and use project-based learning as a means of enhancing not just the technical skills, but what we're now calling the transversal skills, Daniel.
Yeah, yeah.
Because as you well know, as a company director, you need employees who have got the right social and emotional skills. They may have
Agree.
all the technical skills, but if they can't fit in, if they can't work with other people, if they can't exercise initiative and
Mm.
creativity, then they're not going to be anywhere near as effective as they need to be. So we're looking at ways of which, with online learning, we can continue to develop some of those skills. And that's a real
Mm.
challenge, I think.
Yeah, yeah. So that's the real challenge, and for the working also. Okay.
Yes.
Now
And I know,
Zia.
sorry,
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
just going to say, Daniel, I know that Microsoft, when it comes to Microsoft Teams, are looking at how they can develop Microsoft Teams so that you can create within a channel on Microsoft Teams, you can create a little group that can then work together.
Mm-hmm.
And they can do that more easily in an online type environment.
Right, Richard. A very important question is this with this post-COVID world, and let's hope and
Yes.
pray that there's a post-COVID world very soon. What are the skills which will be in demand for all the students who are listening to you? What you and Zia, I'll ask this question to Zia as well. What do you think? What are going to be the skills which are going to be in demand? And that's why the students should look towards those skills or those sectors.
Yeah. Well, I just referred to the transversal skills, and I think, irrespective of what the work environment and the education environment will look like post COVID, and that's something that is evolving, of course. But those skills in particular, I think, will be even more important. And I'm saying that because all of this has presented real challenges. And I know from my own experience of teaching online that it's actually more stressful than you might think because of the different skills that you need to be able to use in order to make it work. And a lot of those skills have their roots in these transversal or social and emotional skills. So having the ability as an individual to manage working online and a mixture of different learning environments, I think will be really, really important. And you've got to have developed ways of doing that don't just rely on the technical capabilities, but also rely on the social and the emotional capabilities. And I think that the challenge for us as an education institution is that we're still able to develop those and hone those so that a student is still, or a student who becomes an employee is capable of understanding the environment that they're working in and working to their maximum capabilities.
All right, Zia,
Yeah.
you've closely looked into UK markets and Pakistani markets, Asian markets. You have an immense experience of working with youngsters, youth. What do you think? What is going to be the post-COVID world for after for skills? By the way.
Well, to me, Daniel, it's a very difficult answer to question to answer at this stage, because the situation is very unique. Richard, if I'm not wrong, I mean, a lot of organizations, their management, their think tanks are not uh, not they have no answer for this, at this stage. If I'm Richard, correct me. Uh, Even if we call this blended learning, this is something which SERC is very experienced in delivering that blended learning.
Yes.
But experiencing experiencing with COVID-19 situation where which was never it was never thought, that this will happen, and we will use blended learning on a larger scale. So I think in future, yeah. Sorry, Richard, do you want to say something, or
No, I'm
Richard?
just listening to what you're saying.
Yeah, no, no, that's fine. Yeah, that's fine. So I see the future for coming 2 to 3 years, according to the studies which I looked at it. Uh, the distance learning will be the main focus of institutions.
Right, the distance learning is going to be the focus. So Zia,
That will
how about
that
what
will be
are
the future,
what
Daniel.
yeah? So what is SERC looking at Southeastern Regional College for distance learning? I believe distance learning is something Southeastern Regional College has expertise and have been developing before even the COVID world.
So we're
No,
talking
is
about.
fully ready for this. Yeah, go ahead, Richard. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that we're talking about online or on campus learning. So we're avoiding the word distance because I think it has connotations that maybe don't really reflect what we're now trying to do. Because you can be anywhere and you can be online. So you could be, within 300 yards of the college, or you could be 300 miles or 3,000 miles. So the
Yeah.
idea that you're online or that you're in or on campus, I think is, whilst it may sound like a moot point, it actually, I think, helps to emphasize the fact that wherever you are, learning is taking place, and that's the important thing. So I'm a very social type person, and I think that whilst Zia is probably right, there's going to be much more of a focus on students learning online. There is no replacement for sitting down with somebody and having a conversation. Anybody that knows anything about communication will know that the spoken part of what you're communicating is really only about 20% of what's being communicated. Your body language, the way you're looking at a person, the way that they're looking at you, all of those things are part of what's going on whenever you're communicating with someone. And they tell a story and communicate a message. So we also need to be looking at more innovative ways of us being able to come together. So, for example, in SERC, we're going to try and create class bubbles. So as much as possible, a class will stay in the same room rather than moving around the college. Now, of course, for some activities that may not be possible, where, let's say, they're going to be working on PLCs, and we have a room where the PLCs are. But then maybe one of the things we need to start looking at is, well, how can we maybe move that dedicated room so that the resources are available in those particular bubble rooms that we're identifying for engineering classes. So I think there's still an awful lot for us to do, Daniel, in making it as easy as possible for students to learn both online and on campus.
Very interesting. Zia, coming towards a very interesting and important topic is right now people are sitting at home. Students are sitting at home. There are practically no practical studies taking place. So it is a very right time for them to look towards enhancing their skills in any new era, new type, new working. For example, English language. For example, getting any other skills done. So what are your thoughts upon that? Actually, there could be a blessing in disguise. There might be an opportunity for skills-based institutions to sell themselves maybe for such programs.
But I think that's it's a very good question, Daniel. Yes, you're absolutely right. So this is the time students can focus on uh, they can focus on something which they would like to improve, specifically, as you said, the English language courses. And interestingly, we have recently developed an online course, Daniel, just for your information. And I don't mind if you would like to have another session on this. So we have developed an English language program with one of the leading universities in Pakistan. Um, I won't mention the name yet, but if we organize another session, I don't mind to mention the name in the future. It's a program which we developed with that university for teacher training plus English language for their students. So very economical for countries like Pakistan, India, or Bangladesh. It's a very economical program in terms of affordability, because students cannot afford, as you know, that in underdeveloped countries, students cannot afford to travel. Not everybody afford to travel internationally, but with this distance learning, uh, they can improve their skills, which they would like to improve. So, in English language word, Daniel, interestingly, most of the universities, English language providers, they are providing summer schools this year through distance learning, online English language programs. So, similarly, the same program which LG, sorry, I was about to mention the name of the university, which we developed with the university. We are now going to open that for, sorry, Richard, I didn't want to mention the name as yet. But it is almost finalized, So we have signed the agreement. The similar program which we develop with that university, we will offer that. It will be open for other universities and colleges throughout the world.
Agree. So yeah, so that's gonna be so coming, because we're into the last
Daniel,
bit of the session.
yeah, Daniel, I strongly recommend that we have a separate session on that program, and I will request our English language manager or someone from that department to who will be present in that session. If you would like to have another
Yeah, so
session on this.
that's the right approach. So coming towards the last questions, Richard, before we onwards go to you, right now there is a lot of uncertainties prevailing. No, nobody has the right answer for any question when we say the future, how the future is going to be. There is a concept right now. I think it's not related to skills only. I am asking for without on a bigger horizon. There's a concept right now evolving that there is no need of universities. We could have online learning in universities. Then there's no need of physical classrooms. Your thoughts upon it? Do you think that's possible?
Well, I mean, we already have online universities like the Open University here in the UK, and I mean it works very, very well. But I come back to what I said earlier. We're social beings, and we thrive whenever we have the opportunity of interacting with each other. And a university is no different from any other organization that provides the opportunity for people to get together. So I don't think that we will see the demise of universities. I think there's still a huge need, not just for what they offer in terms of the qualifications and the research, but also the development of students who go to university. I've often said, and I said this to my own children, that even if you're not 100% sure of what you would like to do when you leave school, if you have the opportunity, and of course that depends on how hard they work at school, but if you have the opportunity of going to university, you should go, because that will help to inform and develop you as a person. And ultimately, irrespective of what stage in the education process you're at, that's what it's all about, isn't it? I'll never forget, Zia, on my first visit to Pakistan, whenever we went to the school, and I was involved in giving out some of the prizes. And to see with those kids who came from very, very disadvantaged backgrounds, the difference that being in that education organization made to their lives, it was literally life-changing. And so whenever you look at that end of the scale, as well as at the university, which is at the other end of the scale, I think it's vital that those organizations are still there and that they're still providing the services, albeit differently from perhaps how they have done it, but that they're still providing that opportunity for development and improvement within those that attend.
Yeah, very, very. Thank you very much.
But Richard,
your closing remarks.
Yeah, no, my closing remarks. Before that, I would like to ask a question to Richard. Richard, you see, when you mentioned about the disadvantaged background, because you're the chief guest today, Richard. You are the chief guest.
So see, we have given you a separate window on the screen also.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's the question?
It's very relevant, Richard. It's very relevant to the question, which Daniyal asked about the future of distance learning and future of universities. When you said that disadvantaged background, so the affordability is another issue for higher education. I think with this distance learning, the economy, the affordability factor will be there, that more people will have access to higher education, if I'm not wrong. That will be,
I think,
something which I on a positive note,
Yes.
That,
yeah.
I think more people will have higher education.
I think that's true, Zia. And if we're simply talking about obtaining a qualification, then that's fair enough. But I think what I was trying to say that in coming to college, and I mean, you see it within the international students, how after having been in SERC, and I mean, I've got one international student from Tunisia, and even after a year, I can see a difference in how this individual communicates, in how he interacts with the other students, and how he has developed as an individual. And a lot of that simply can't happen online.
No, so it cannot happen online. I totally agree.
It's recognizing what institutions like ourselves have to offer. Isn't just a qualification, but it's a whole life experience that, for the most part, is a very positive one, an enriching one. And it's how we maintain and even develop that within the current situation.
No, that's right, Richard. Thank you. Yeah.
Daniyal,
just a thank note. Thank you very much, Daniyal. It's been always a pleasure working with you, with Evolve, with your team, with DS Global. It's been always an absolute pleasure working with you, Daniyal.
Same here.
Thank you very much.
I think it will be a series of sessions in which we'll be looking forward for our Northern Ireland friends to share their views and thoughts. And I'm pretty sure that when we will hit one of those stories again, that there was a giant which threw something on the Scottish side. Was it which giant won, by the way? I'm still not sure for that story.
That was Finn McCool.
Giant Cosmic.
Finn McCool.
Is it?
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Daniyal, it's a pleasure to see you again. Yeah. And I hope it's not that long before I have another opportunity to come to Pakistan.
Exactly. Same is the case. We look forward for being in Northern Ireland as well. I wish you guys safe health, stay safe, stay home, as we call it here. And we wish you all the best. We will have more and more sessions. And next time we will have Richard playing his guitar for us.
Not to be missed.
Yeah. Right. Thank you very much, Zia. Thank you very much, Richard, for the time today.
Daniel.
Daniel, thank you. It's an absolute
Thanks,
pleasure.
Richard.
Zia,
Take care.
good to
Thank
see
you.
you.
Likewise.
Bye.